Have you ever found yourself pouring everything you've got, your time, your energy, your very soul, into someone who responds as if you just offered them a coupon to a store they never shop at? You bend over backward, sacrificing your own needs, planning thoughtful gestures, all to ensure she knows just how much she means to you. And yet, instead of gratitude or affection, you're met with a frosty indifference, or worse, a rejection so sharp it could slice through steel. It stings, doesn't it? That hollow feeling of being dismissed, like all your efforts were as disposable as last week's leftovers. Society has a habit of telling men to man up in these moments, as if emotions are an inconvenience we're supposed to tuck away like an embarrassing middle school yearbook photo. But let's be honest, rejection doesn't roll off our backs like water off a duck. It burrows in, gnawing at our confidence and making us question our worth. Was I not enough? Did I screw up somewhere? These questions linger like a bad song stuck in your head, pulling you into a cycle of doubt that feels harder to escape than quicksand. And then, like clockwork, comes the classic mistake most men make after rejection. They chase. The calls, the texts, the long-winded explanations that read more like desperate soliloquies than meaningful communication. The hope: to rekindle the spark, to undo the damage, to remind her of everything she's missing. The reality? It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. Chasing not only pushes her further away, but it also shouts to the world, and her, that your worth depends entirely on her approval, a surefire way to give away every ounce of your power. But what if I told you there's a better way? A way to reclaim your confidence, your dignity, and that all-too elusive sense of self-worth? The answer isn't in pleading or overcompensating. It's in silence. Not the brooding, passive-aggressive kind meant to guilt-trip her, but silence as a deliberate act of self-control, growth, and strength. Because when you step back, when you pull your energy and presence out of her life, something remarkable happens. She begins to notice. The absence she once dismissed as trivial starts to feel significant, and the dynamics between you start to shift in ways you never imagined. Let's not sugarcoat it, though. When you first choose silence, you'll probably expect fireworks. A dramatic realization on her part, where she's suddenly overwhelmed by the void you've left behind. But here's the cold, hard truth. At first, she likely won't even flinch. In fact, she might feel a strange sense of relief. To her, your silence might seem like a well-earned break, a chance to breathe without the weight of your attention hovering over her like a persistent rain cloud. Why? Because in her mind, you've always been there. She's grown used to your consistency, your dedication, and your care. She assumes it's a permanent fixture, something as dependable as the sun rising in the east. Your silence doesn't initially register as a loss, but as a brief interruption, a phase she fully expects will end soon enough. She tells herself, he'll be back. He always is. During this phase, she might even double down on the belief that walking away was the right decision. She'll throw herself into distractions, nights out with friends, a curated barrage of cheerful social media posts, and shallow conversations that give the illusion of fulfillment. From the outside, it may seem like she's thriving, like she's better off without you. But don't be fooled. This is the calm before the storm, the surface-level show that masks what's brewing underneath. For you, this stage is the toughest. Watching her carry on as though your absence hasn't caused a ripple, can feel like a punch to the gut. The instinct to break the silence, to remind her of your existence, will scream louder than ever. But here's where the real challenge lies, resisting the urge to act on those emotions. This is the critical point where most men falter. They let their feelings override their judgment and break their silence, chasing after validation that never truly comes. But if you can hold the line, if you can stay disciplined and focus on yourself instead of her reaction, everything changes. The silence becomes your greatest ally, a quiet but powerful declaration that says, "I know my worth, and I won't settle for less." It's not about playing games, it's about reclaiming the power you once handed over. So, take a deep breath, hold your ground, and trust in the process. The real shift is just beginning. Don't stumble into that well-worn trap. Your silence isn't about her reaction. It's about reclaiming your power, and nothing feels quite as liberating as putting yourself first. Stoicism, that ancient art of not sweating the small stuff, or the indifferent exes, reminds us to focus on what we can control, and let go of what we cannot. Her indifference. That's firmly in the category of not your problem. What you can control, my friend, is how you respond to it. And respond you shall, by turning your attention inward, not outward. This is your moment to rebuild, like a carpenter lovingly crafting a masterpiece. Hit the gym, and while you're at it, bench press that self-doubt into oblivion. Dust off that guitar you swore you'd learn during quarantine. Take a salsa class, or reconnect with friends and family, the ones who actually enjoy your company without expecting a sonnet about their virtues. Rediscover your value beyond her approval, because believe it or not, your worth doesn't hinge on her liking your Instagram posts. As the days tick by, her confidence in her decision might seem rock solid on the surface. She's out there living her best life. Or so the carefully curated social media feed claims. But cracks, oh, those delicious subtle cracks, are beginning to form beneath the facade. The absence of your presence, once brushed off as a welcomed breather, is starting to settle in like an unwelcome houseguest. That space she insisted she needed? It's beginning to feel a little too spacious, a little too quiet, and a lot emptier than she anticipated. Your silence, though it appears unnoticed, is quietly doing its job. It's like planting seeds in a garden. You don't see the growth right away, but it's happening underground. Every day she spends without you is another day she experiences the life she thought she wanted. And spoiler alert, it's not quite as liberating as she imagined. While she's busy enjoying her freedom, she's unwittingly laying the groundwork for regret. Your role in all this? Simple. Stay silent, stay disciplined, and stay focused on yourself. This isn't the time for grand gestures or impassioned speeches. It's the time to master patience and let the process unfold. This stage isn't about her, it's about you. The man who doesn't chase, plead, or beg is the man who commands respect, not just from others, but from himself. And as long as you hold your ground, the balance will start to shift in ways you can't yet see. Here's the truth. Her initial indifference isn't the grand finale of this story, it's the opening act. Your silence isn't an absence, it's a statement. It says, loud and clear, I know my worth, and I won't settle for less. And while she might not feel its weight right away, rest assured, the silence is working its quiet magic. At first, your absence feels like a fleeting gust of wind to her, a minor inconvenience she barely notices as life barrels forward. But slowly, something subtle begins to shift. It's not dramatic, no light bulb moments or violins playing in the background. It starts with the little things, like the absence of your name popping up on her phone with a cheerful "good morning." The thoughtful gestures she once dismissed as trivial now echo in her memory, leaving behind a faint sense of loss she can't quite put her finger on. Initially, she brushes it off. It's no big deal, she tells herself with the kind of overconfidence usually reserved for people who claim they'll only eat one potato chip. He'll text eventually, he always does. But lurking beneath that self-assured facade is a tiny voice whispering, "What if he doesn't?" That's the power of your silence. Not loud or confrontational, but steady and consistent, like the tick of a clock she can't ignore. As time drifts on, the void you've left in her daily routine becomes harder to ignore. It's in the moments when she instinctively reaches for her phone, expecting to see your name, only to find the silence staring back at her. It's in the songs that play on the radio, the places you used to visit together, the memories that resurface uninvited. These small, seemingly insignificant reminders, they're the first cracks in the wall she's built around her indifference. She won't admit it, not to herself, and certainly not to anyone else. On the surface, she'll keep up appearances. She'll post pictures with her friends, flash those curated smiles, and stay busy with distractions. But behind the filter-perfect facade, there's a growing unease. A quiet emptiness is beginning to creep in, one that lingers no matter how many plans she makes or how many selfies she takes. This is your moment to shine, not in her world, but in your own. Stay the course. Keep your focus. The silence isn't just about her. It's about proving to yourself that you don't need her validation to thrive. And trust me, the best is yet to come. For you, my friend, this stage is nothing short of a test of endurance, patience, and good old-fashioned grit. It's like staring at a plate of warm cookies while you're on a diet. You know breaking will undo all your hard work, but the temptation still gnaws at you. The urge to send a text, to casually check in, or to remind her of your existence may feel overwhelming, but don't give in. The power of your silence lies in its unbroken consistency. If you cave now, you risk hitting the reset button on all the progress you've made. This is your moment to trust the process, even if it feels like waiting for a watched pot to boil. Slow, agonizing, and oddly satisfying once it finally happens. Stoicism, with all its ancient wisdom, reminds us that growth is born from discomfort. Right now, she's feeling the strain of your absence in ways she didn't anticipate, while you're battling the urge to seek reassurance. But here's the secret. This discomfort is the forge where transformation takes place, for both of you. As the days turn into weeks, the emptiness on her end becomes harder to ignore. Sure, she might throw herself into distractions, nights out with friends, shallow banter, or even a new connection that seems shiny at first glance. But here's the kicker. These distractions are about as effective as using a band-aid on a sinking ship. The void you've left behind isn't something she can fill with surface-level interactions. It's deeper than that, and the more she tries to cover it up, the more pronounced it becomes. For you, discipline is the name of the game. This isn't the time to sit idly, refreshing your phone or waiting for a sign. It's the time to roll up your sleeves and invest in yourself. Dive headfirst into your passions, your goals, and your growth. Hit the gym, pick up that book you've been meaning to read, or learn a skill that's been calling your name. This silence isn't about making her notice. It's about proving to yourself that you can thrive without her validation. Every day you resist the urge to reach out is another brick in the foundation of your future. The signs of her emptiness might start as faint whispers, but they'll grow into undeniable truths. They're the first inklings of her realizations that what she lost wasn't just someone who cared, it was someone irreplaceable. And as those whispers turn into roars, the impact of your silence will hit her harder than a mid-July thunderstorm. What once felt like freedom to her, finally having space and time away from you, begins to morph into something unsettling. The silence, which she initially welcomed, starts to linger in her quiet moments. It sneaks into her thoughts when she's scrolling through her phone and your name is nowhere to be found. It nags at her when she's out with friends and realizes something vital is missing. At first, she tells herself stories to brush it off. He's just busy, she thinks. He'll come back around. But deep down, the confidence she had in your inevitable return starts to waver. The silence she once dismissed as temporary now feels like a mirror, reflecting choices she's beginning to question. This discomfort doesn't hit her all at once. It builds gradually, like raindrops filling a bucket. And with each passing day, that bucket gets closer to spilling over. She might double down on her distractions, throwing herself into social events, work projects, or even new connections. But none of these things can replicate what she had with you. The void remains, stubbornly refusing to be filled. So, here's your task. Stay strong, stay patient, and resist the urge to break the silence. Your silence isn't just a void, it's a message. It tells her, and more importantly, it tells you that your worth isn't up for debate. It's a quiet yet powerful declaration of self-respect. Remember this, the emptiness she's starting to feel isn't a problem for you to solve. It's a lesson she didn't realize she needed, and it's happening because you held firm. So hold the line, focus on yourself, and let the silence do the work. Because trust me, the best part of this journey is still to come. No matter how many hobbies she takes up or social events she attends, the void you left lingers like a shadow that just won't take the hint. Those distractions she clings to, they're like slapping a band-aid on a broken arm. Superficial fixes that do nothing to heal the deeper wound your silence has carved out. The stability, care, and attention you once offered are gone, and try as she might, nothing seems to fill that gap. For someone who was relatively new in your life, this stage hits with a surprising weight. She might have thought she could waltz away without so much as a backward glance, fully convinced that her decision to distance herself was the right one. But now, she's discovering the weight of those choices. Every new interaction, every fleeting connection, seems to pale in comparison to what she had with you. It's not just a casual realization either, it's something deeper, almost instinctual. She begins to compare, consciously or not, and those comparisons rarely swing in favor of the newcomer. For someone who had been in your life for much longer, the discomfort is even sharper. She believed, perhaps naively, that she could always count on your presence. No matter how distant or dismissive she became, she figured you'd always be there, reliable as clockwork. But now, as the silence stretches on like a canyon she can't cross, she realizes she miscalculated. That life she imagined, free, unburdened, liberating, now feels cold, isolated, and oppressively heavy. The absence she once waved off as trivial now looms over her like an unshakable weight. On your side of this equation, my friend, this stage is both a challenge and a golden opportunity. Her discomfort is not some vengeance-driven punishment. It's the natural byproduct of the boundaries you set. This is not about getting back at her. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and, most importantly, your self-worth. While she wrestles with her growing unease, you have the perfect chance to focus on the things that truly matter, your own growth and evolution. Here's where Stoicism steps in like an old friend offering sage advice. Discomfort, as it turns out, isn't your enemy. It's the crucible where transformation occurs. Her unease is teaching her to value what she lost, while your discipline is molding you into a man who doesn't just survive this journey, but thrives through it. During this stage, resist the siren call of breaking your silence. That temptation to check in or casually remind her of your presence may creep in, but don't give it the satisfaction. Reaching out now would only undo the progress you've made. Your silence is a tool, not just for her realization, but for your own growth. It's teaching you patience, control, and perhaps most powerfully, the art of letting go. As the days tick by and weeks turn into longer stretches, her discomfort will evolve into something she can't shake off. Thoughts of you will begin to surface more frequently, unbidden and persistent. She'll start to wonder, what are you doing? Have you moved on? With each passing day, the possibility that she may have lost you for good becomes harder for her to ignore. For you, this stage is a clear marker of just how far you've come. The man who once might have begged, pleaded, or chased after validation no longer exists. You've transformed into someone who knows his worth, someone who can walk away from situations that don't honor his value. This transformation is what makes your silence so powerful, not as a weapon, but as a statement. The discomfort she feels now is only the beginning, a first glimmer of understanding about what she let slip through her fingers. And for you, it's a testament to the undeniable impact you've had on her life. This isn't just about her choices, it's about your growth. So, stay strong. Stay disciplined. Trust the process, even when it tests your patience. The ache she's feeling now is the foundation for a lesson she didn't realize she needed. And for you, it's a reminder that your silence isn't just an absence. It's the loudest declaration of your strength, self-worth, and growth. Let that ache work its magic, for the real transformation, for both of you, is still to come. Her first instinct? Fill the emptiness, of course. But here's the rub. What she's looking for isn't something you can just pick up at the corner store. It's not a pint of ice cream, a shiny new hobby, or even a rebound romance. She dives headfirst into distractions, nights out with friends, mindlessly scrolling through her phone, or signing up for yoga classes she doesn't even like. For a moment, it seems to work. These distractions act like a cheap wallpaper over the gaping hole your absence has left, a temporary way to avoid confronting what's really missing. But distractions, as they often do, wear thin. Eventually, the quiet moments catch up with her, the ones where it's just her and her thoughts. That's when she shifts gears and tries to fill the void with new connections. Maybe she starts dating again, rekindles a spark with an old flame, or just throws herself into shallow conversations with whoever's around. On the surface, it looks like progress. It looks like she's moving on. But beneath that facade, something's not adding up. Why? Because what she's trying to replace isn't just someone to be around. It's the depth, stability, and authenticity you brought into her life. And those, my friend, aren't qualities you find in every passing connection. The new people she meets might seem exciting at first, maybe even refreshing. But as time goes on, the comparisons begin. She starts noticing the gaps. They don't understand her quirks like you did. They don't remember the little details you made second nature. Conversations feel shallow, lacking the richness she once took for granted. These realizations don't crash down like thunder. They creep in like a slow fog, building her frustration. For someone who was relatively new in your life, this stage can be a humbling eye-opener. She might have believed you were replaceable, that another man could step into your role like a substitute teacher. But now, the truth is dawning on her. What you brought to the table wasn't ordinary. It was rare. And every failed attempt to replicate it only sharpens the clarity of what she lost. For someone who was in your life longer, the frustration cuts even deeper. She may have assumed you'd always be there, like a spare tire in the trunk, a backup plan for when other roads led nowhere. But now, as the silence stretches on, she's faced with a new reality. You're not there waiting. You've moved on. And those shallow connections she clings to? They don't hold a candle to the loyalty, understanding, or emotional depth you provided. This stage is a battlefield of internal conflict for her. The questions come fast and heavy. Was I too quick to move on? Did I underestimate him? Was he really that irreplaceable? These doubts swirl, growing louder with each failed attempt to fill the void. Meanwhile, on your side of the chessboard, you're thriving. This is your moment of transformation, a pivotal turning point. It's easy to let your mind wander, to imagine someone else stepping into the role you once held. But here's the truth. The value you brought into her life is something no one else can duplicate. You're not a carbon copy. You're the original article. This is where stoicism becomes your ally. Focus on what you can control: your growth, your mindset, and your future. Let go of the need to compare yourself to others. You don't need to measure yourself against the unknown. Instead, use this time to continue becoming the man you've always wanted to be. Because while she wrestles with her doubts and frustrations, you're building a life that doesn't revolve around her approval. And that, my friend, is the most irreplaceable thing of all. As her frustration deepens, an unwelcome companion quietly settles in. Awareness. The kind of awareness that shows up uninvited, sits down on the couch of her mind, and starts pointing out all the ways her new connections fall flat compared to what she once had with you. The people she's meeting don't measure up to the standard you set, not in security, not in understanding, not in that unique sense of connection that seemed to flow so effortlessly between you. With every failed attempt to fill the void, that emptiness feels bigger, more profound, and, much to her dismay, much more permanent. For her, this is a humbling moment. It's like realizing the buy one, get one free deal she went for turned out to be buy one, regret it twice. She's now forced to confront a reality she tried to ignore. Not all connections are created equal, and what she had with you was far from ordinary. She thought she could replace you with ease, that your presence was something she could replicate without much effort. But life, as it turns out, had other plans for her enlightenment. Meanwhile, on your side, this stage becomes a celebration of sorts. a victory lap of self-worth. You've held firm, kept your silence, and invested in your growth. You've shown her, and more importantly, yourself, that you're not just another name in her contact list. You're someone who commands respect, someone who leaves an indelible mark. You're no fleeting shadow. You're the lighthouse she didn't realize she needed until the storm hit. And then, as this phase nears its inevitable end, frustration evolves into something heavier. Regret. Regret doesn't arrive with a bang or a dramatic flourish. Oh no, it creeps in slowly, like a silent fog, settling into her thoughts until it's impossible to ignore. It builds piece by piece, fueled by the growing realization that she made a mistake, one she can't just swipe away like a bad Tinder match. At first, regret whispers in the quiet moments. It sneaks in when she's scrolling through her phone and pauses on an old photo of the two of you, smiling like life was simpler. It taps her on the shoulder when she replays memories of the way you made her feel. Seen, valued, supported. She remembers the inside jokes, the small gestures, the uncanny way you seemed to understand her like no one else could. Each memory weaves itself into a tapestry of what she had and what she lost. And with every thread, the weight of it grows heavier. She might not admit it, not to herself, and certainly not to anyone else. But that regret is there. It lingers in her hesitation before sending a text, the uncertainty of whether you'd even reply. It's in the way she scrolls back through your old messages, searching for fragments of the connection she once dismissed as ordinary. But deep down, she knows. She let go of something rare, something irreplaceable, and there's no guarantee she'll find it again. For someone who was newer in your life, this stage hits like a splash of cold water. She might have thought you were just another chapter in her story, one she could close without a second thought. But now, she's realizing that what you offered wasn't just another passing connection. It was meaningful. It brought stability, understanding, and a sense of value she didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. And that kind of connection isn't easily replaced. For someone who had been in your life longer, the regret cuts deeper, like a slow burn she can't escape. She thought she had you figured out, thought she knew your worth. But as the silence stretches on, she's confronted with the painful reality that she underestimated you. The life she thought would feel lighter and freer without you now feels heavy, hollow, and isolating. That emptiness she dismissed as insignificant has become a constant companion, reminding her of the mistake she made. And while she wrestles with her regret, you stand taller. You've transformed into someone who values himself enough to walk away from a situation where he wasn't respected or appreciated. Her regret isn't just a reflection of her choices. It's a testament to the growth and strength you've cultivated. You're no longer the man who chases, begs, or pleads. You've become the man who knows his worth and holds his ground. And that, my friend, is a powerful thing. On your side of this saga, this stage is less about her regret and more about your triumph. A living testament to how far you've come. Let's be clear, her regret is not your doing. It's the natural fallout of her choices, a souvenir of her decisions, and, quite frankly, a reckoning with her own short-sightedness. Stoicism, in its timeless wisdom, reminds us to release what we cannot control, and that includes her newfound epiphany about what she let slip through her fingers. Her regret. That's her backpack of bricks to carry up the hill, not yours to pick up out of politeness. As her regret grows, so does the itch to reach out. Maybe it starts with a subtle breadcrumb, A casual, "Hey, how have you been?" text that's as nonchalant as a cat knocking over a glass of water. Or perhaps it's a heartfelt apology, typed out at midnight and sent with shaky hands. Whatever shape her message takes, the underlying tone is unmistakable. She knows she lost something rare. And in the grand marketplace of human connections, she's starting to realize that discounts on loyalty, respect, and depth are hard to come by. But here's the kicker. Her regret was never the prize you were after. It's not the trophy at the end of your silent marathon. No, that shiny object is your reclaimed sense of self-worth, your confidence, and the power you've discovered in letting go. Her regret is just the confetti fluttering down at the end of your parade. It's there, but you didn't march for it. This is where many men stumble. When regret shows up with its carefully packaged compliments and overdue acknowledgements, it's tempting to rush back, heart pounding, and arms open wide. After all, who doesn't want to hear someone finally recognize their value? But remember, this journey wasn't about her validation. It was about the boundaries you've built, the discipline you've shown, and the strength you've cultivated. If you do decide to engage, it must be on your terms, not hers. For her, regret is a tough but necessary teacher. It drags her through the murky waters of consequence, forcing her to confront the weight of her choices. For you, it's a glowing reminder of the person you've become. The man who once might have chased, pleaded, or even bargained for her attention is no longer here. He's been replaced by someone who understands his worth and refuses to settle for less. As this stage comes to its crescendo, her regret will hit its peak. She'll wonder if she's permanently lost something irreplaceable, if she'll ever find another connection that matches the one she once dismissed. And for you, it's a moment of clarity, a chance to look back and see the distance you've covered. Her regret may be unavoidable, but for you, it's nothing more than a stepping stone, a signpost on the road to your transformation. The truth is, this journey was never about her. It was always about you. About rediscovering your strength, reclaiming your dignity, and proving to yourself that your worth isn't tethered to someone else's acknowledgement. Your silence wasn't a punishment or a strategy. It was a declaration, loud and clear, of your self-respect. It was your way of saying, "I know my value, and I won't lower my standards for anyone." The absence you created wasn't an empty void. It was a space brimming with growth, resilience, and transformation. While she wrestled with discomfort, frustration, and the heavy weight of regret, you were busy building a stronger, more self-assured version of yourself. Stoicism teaches us to focus solely on what we can control, our actions, thoughts, and growth. Everything else, her feelings, her choices, her regrets, is beyond your influence. And you've embraced that truth, letting go of what you couldn't control, and discovering strength you didn't know you had. So, where does this leave you? Moving forward, of course. Whether she reaches out or remains silent, whether she regrets her choices or doesn't, none of it defines your value. The man you've become through this process is living proof that you can thrive, no matter what. You've reclaimed your power, and that's a victory no one can take from you. This is your story now. It's no longer about chasing someone who couldn't see your worth. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to chase. You've grown, you've endured, and you've emerged stronger, more confident, and more complete than before. As you continue on this path, always remember, your silence wasn't just an absence. It was the loudest, most powerful statement you could make. If this journey resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on how far you've come. Hit the like button, subscribe for more insights, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And in the comments, let's hear it. What does your silence mean to you? Together, let's keep building this strength, one step at a time.